And good morning, YouTube. Earlier this year I did a video where I narrowed the bottom bracket and re-centered it on my Monstercross bike here, and I had given you an update on the narrowed part of the project, and that's a definite thumbs up. Now been probably a good 6 months that I've been riding with the narrowed Q factor, as they call it, and yeah, I definitely like it. One of the slight problems I think I was having due to this being offset by that 5 millimeters was I was getting a little bit of pain in my left knee on long rides, and I'm no longer getting that. So I think having the pedals centered under the bike better is definitely helping. And I did have one comment that measuring off of the chain stays down here might not be accurate, but I also measured from the seat tube out to the cranks here, and I get the same measurement on both sides. But one of the motivations for narrowing that, as I mentioned in that earlier video, is I was getting some noise out of the bottom bracket, kind of a squeaky bearing kind of sound, and so I thought these bottom bracket bearings might be worn out. So that was my motivation to pull this apart, was I had to change out the bearings to see if I could get rid of that noise. I didn't report back on that because it turns out it took quite a bit of work to get rid of the noise in the bottom bracket. So the first thing was replacing the bearings did get rid of that squeaky, grinding kind of noise that I was getting. It was getting to the point where just pedaling was kind of a squeaky sound. But what I noticed was at about 3 to 4 o'clock on a pedal stroke, when you were standing up on the pedals, there was now behind that squeaky grindy sound was sort of a pop or a clicking sound that I was getting only when you were standing on the pedals. What I want to do with this video is I'm going to tie in videos of all of the things that I looked at to solve that problem. So what I'll do is I'll put a link to the video up here in the upper right corner, tell you what I did, and then I'll pause for a bit and then tell you the result of that particular maintenance task. So the first thing I looked at was the pedals. I had not serviced the pedals since I built the bike. I'll put a link to servicing the pedals, and I'll also mention a little bit about how I put these pins in the pedals for a little bit better performance off-road. So that video will be up here. And the result, no change. So it wasn't the pedals that were the problem. So one of my rides involves going through a creek crossing, and earlier this spring the water was deep enough that it would get up to about this level on your bike as you went through the creek crossing. And on one of my rides I noticed for about 30 minutes after the creek crossing the noise was gone, and then it came back after about 30 minutes. So I thought it might be these fixing bolts on the chain rings, and I read one page that said that can be a source of noise. So I'll put in a video where I tore the crankset apart and cleaned and greased all the chain rings and fixing bolts, and I'll put that right up here. And again, no luck. Didn't do a thing for the noise. So let's go to the back of the bike here. Here we are on the back of the bike. So I'd pretty much eliminated everything up front that could be making noise. And I decided to come to the back here. The cassettes are basically riveted together, so there'll be a carrier, and then one or more of these cogs are riveted onto that carrier. So one thing I did was I took the cassette off, I cleaned and lightly greased the free hub splines, and then I also put a drop of oil on all of the rivets on the cassette. Yeah, so here's one of my other rear hubs, and this is where I cleaned and greased the splines on the free hub here, and that didn't make any difference. So what I had done a few years ago was I found that these outer hub bearings that the the wheel rolls on were causing the noise. So I had done this a couple years ago, so that's why I didn't initially suspect that that was the cause again. At the time, I made a video on replacing those bearings, so I'll put that up here in the upper right corner. And I cleaned and greased the bearings, actually I put the original bearings back in the hub there, and it didn't do anything. It was the same noise. So that at that point, the only thing that was left was the two bearings inside the free hub. And that's these two bearings. These were the ones that were in there. So I pulled that apart, and unfortunately, when I got to this point, it was getting late, it was starting to get dark outside, and I was trying to get my bike ready. Replacing these is very similar to replacing the hub bearings. I made myself a little tool here to press these in and out with. But like I mentioned, it was getting dark and late, and I did not shoot any video of this. And it turns out that was the problem. It was the two free hub bearings. So I'll put a link to a video by another YouTuber that he did a really nice video on replacing the free hub and hub bearings. Very similar to doing the hub bearings, you just need a slightly different tool. So I made up that tool and swapped them out, and that solved the problem. So fortunately, I did not get any video of that fix, but it just goes to show you that when you're chasing a noise that seems to be coming from the crankset, it's pretty much just a process of elimination. You know, get rid of all the possible causes up front. And I think what was happening was, since the bearings were a little bit loose, I think they were just dried out and then slightly loose, that would cause this cassette to slightly rock under heavy pedaling pressure, and then that noise would transmit up the tight chain. You would hear the noise coming out of the front. I mean, it was coming out of this right here, but the source was back here. That finally solved the problem, so I've been noise-free for several months now. So anyway, I just wanted to update that earlier video on the crankset and let you know everything's working now. I finally got the noise fixed. So it turned out it was two different noises. There was the bearings were making noise, but they were covering up this clicking, popping sound. And so once I fixed the noisy bearings, then it was a matter of tracking down the clicking, popping sound. And it just took quite a while because I could do one fix and then I wanted to test it, but the nearest hill where I can repeat that noise is about a 15-mile round trip from my house, so I only get up there about once a week. Anyway, hopefully this video will help you solve your own bottom bracket noise problem. If you've run into that and found any other solutions, go ahead and post up in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.